What does it mean to believe? Faith is the fundamental act of Christian existence. The essential structure of Christianity finds expression in the act of faith, which is the answer it gives to the question, how can we attain our destiny and thereby realize our humanity? There are, of course, other answers. Not all religions are a faith. For example, Buddhism, in its classical form, does not at all tend toward this act of self-transcendence, of encounter with the one who is totally other, with this God who speaks to me or who summons me to love. Instead, Buddhism is characterized by an act of radical internalization, not an act that makes one emerge from oneself, but an act of returning into oneself. This act is meant to lead to liberation from the yoke of individuality, from the burden represented by the fact of being a person, to a return into the common unity of being. Compared with the experience we have of being, we can describe the absolute otherness of this being as non-being, as nothing. 1. Faith and everyday life, a fundamental human attitude. It is not my intention to enter this particular discussion. What interests us for the moment is, put very simply, how to understand the fundamental act of Christian existence, the act of faith. As soon as we set out on this path of reflection, we encounter a difficulty, since we must ask, is faith truly an attitude worthy of a modern adult? Believing seems a provisional, transitory stage that ought, in the last analysis, to be left behind. Although this is often inevitable in our life, precisely because we are speaking here of a provisional attitude. No one is truly capable of possessing a personal knowledge and mastery of all those realities on which our daily life in a technological society is based. We are obliged to accept an enormous number of things, in most cases putting our trust in science, and all the more so because the experience we have in common seems a sufficient confirmation of this trust. All of us, to a greater or lesser degree, make use of the products of technology, although we are ignorant of its scientific foundations. Which of us can calculate or verify the statics of a building? Which of us knows how an elevator works, to say nothing of the worlds of electricity and electronics which are so familiar to us? And how far, to move on to a much more delicate subject, can we trust the information on the packaging of a pharmaceutical compound? We could multiply examples. We live within a network of unknown quantities, with the general expectation that these will provide us with positive experiences. We believe that all this is not unfounded, and this kind of faith allows us to enjoy the benefits of other people's professional knowledge. But what kind of faith is this which we practice all the time without even noticing, and which is at the basis of the life we share every day? Without at once trying to offer a definition, let us begin on the level of what is immediately observable. Two contrasting aspects of this kind of faith strike us at once. First of all, we can affirm that a faith of this kind is indispensable in our life. This is true for the simple reason that, if this were not the case, nothing would function anymore. Each one of us would have to start afresh all the time. This is also true on a deeper level, in the sense that human life becomes impossible if one can no longer trust the other and others. If one cannot rely a priori on their experience and knowledge and on what they offer us. This is one of the positive aspects of this faith. On the other hand, of course, it is the expression of an ignorance that makes the best of a bad job. It would undeniably be better if we did possess the appropriate knowledge. We have elaborated here what we might call an axiological structure of this natural faith. We have examined the values it contains and seen that such a faith is a lesser value than knowledge, but at the same time a foundational value of human existence. Without this basis, no society could survive. We can also identify the various elements involved in the structure of action of such a faith. These are 3 in number. First, this faith always refers to someone who possesses up-to-date knowledge of the question. It presupposes that qualified and credible persons do, in fact, possess this knowledge. The second element is the trust on the part of the multitude of those who, in the daily use they make of things, do not rely on the solid knowledge that actually produced them. Finally, the third element we must mention is the existence of a kind of verification of knowledge in daily experience. I am not capable of verifying scientifically whether the act of switching on a reading lamp is the result of a process based on the principles of electricity, but this does not lead me to reject the affirmation that this is in fact the case, because my household appliances function in daily life despite my own lack of professional knowledge. This means that although I may not have been initiated into this knowledge, nevertheless I am not acting in a pure faith bereft of any kind of confirmation.